In a small village nestled in the lush hills of Kenya lived a boy named Kito. Kito was an orphan. His mother had passed away when he was very young, and his father, Babu, remarried a woman named Mama Amina. With Mama Amina came a young daughter, Mwanaisha, who was only a few years younger than Kito. Kito's life was not easy. His father, Babu, was a stern man who seldom showed affection. Every day, Babu would find reasons to scold Kito. "You are too slow," he would shout as Kito fetched water from the stream. "You can't even carry a basket properly." Babu would bark while Kito harvested maize in the fields. Despite his father's harsh words, Kito remained gentle and kind, especially to his stepsister, Mwanaisha. Mwanaisha adored Kito. She followed him everywhere, her big brown eyes full of admiration. Kito, in return, looked after her with a brother's love. He taught her how to climb trees and showed her where to find the juiciest mangoes. While Babu's scolding was like a thunderstorm, Mwanaisha's laughter was the sunshine in Kito's life. One day, as the sun was setting behind the hills, casting a golden glow over the village, Kito and Mwanaisha went to the forest to collect firewood. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers, and the sounds of chirping crickets filled the evening. They wandered deeper into the forest than they usually did, enchanted by the beauty around them. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes. Before they could react, a huge snake slithered out onto the path. Mwanaisha froze in fear, her small body trembling. Kito's heart pounded in his chest, but he knew he had to protect his sister. Without a second thought, he grabbed a nearby stick and stood in front of Mwanaisha, his eyes fixed on the snake. "Go away," Kito shouted, waving the stick at the snake. The snake hissed, its forked tongue flickering in and out. Kito took a step forward, his grip tightening on the stick. The snake recoiled, unsure of the brave boy in front of it. Finally, with a final wave of the stick, Kito managed to scare the snake away. Mwanaisha burst into tears and clung to Kito, burying her face in his chest. Kito hugged her tightly, his own legs shaking now that the danger had passed. He whispered soothing words to her until she calmed down, her sobs turning into soft hiccups. As they made their way back home, Kito kept a protective arm around Mwanaisha. When they finally emerged from the forest, the village was bathed in the soft light of dusk. They could see the smoke rising from the cooking fires and the distant sounds of laughter from the children playing. When they reached home, Mama Amina rushed to them, her face pale with worry. "Where have you been?" she cried, hugging Mwanaisha tightly. Babu stood nearby, his arms crossed and his expression stern. "What took you so long?" he demanded. Kito hesitated, unsure of how to explain. But before he could speak, Mwanaisha piped up. "Kito saved me, Baba. There was a big snake, and he chased it away." Babu's eyes widened, and he looked at Kito with a mixture of surprise and disbelief. For a moment, Kito thought he saw a flicker of pride in his father's eyes, but it quickly disappeared behind Babu's usual frown. "Go inside and wash up," Babu said gruffly. "Dinner is almost ready." Kito nodded and led Mwanaisha into the house. As they washed their hands in the cool water, Mwanaisha looked up at Kito and smiled. "You are my hero, Kito," she whispered. Kito smiled back, his heart swelling with warmth. For the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of pride. No matter what his father thought, he knew he had done something brave and good. But deep down, Kito wondered if this act of courage would change anything between him and his father. Would Babu ever see him as more than just a burden? As he pondered these questions, Kito couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things would start to change. As Kito and Mwanaisha settled down for dinner, the atmosphere in their small hut was different. Babu, usually quick to find fault, was unusually quiet. Mama Amina served the food, her eyes lingering on Kito with a softness he hadn't seen before. After dinner, as the family sat around the fire, Babu finally spoke. Kito, he began, his voice gruff but less harsh than usual. I heard what happened today. You showed bravery. He paused, his eyes searching Kito's face. You protected your sister. Kito's heart skipped a beat. This was the first time his father had acknowledged him in such a way. Thank you, Baba, he replied quietly, not daring to hope for more. Babu nodded, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. You did well, he said simply. Now, it's time to sleep. We have work tomorrow. As Kito lay on his mat that night, Mwanaisha curled up beside him. He felt a warm glow of happiness. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change. The next morning, Babu handed Kito a new task. Take the goats to graze by the river, he instructed, and take Mwanaisha with you. She can learn to be helpful too. Kito nodded, feeling a surge of pride. As they walked to the river, Mwanaisha skipped alongside him, her face beaming with excitement. They spent the day watching the goats, laughing and playing by the water's edge. In the afternoon, Kito noticed Babu watching them from a distance. His father's gaze was softer, more thoughtful than Kito had ever seen. Babu approached them slowly, his footsteps careful and deliberate. Kito, Babu said, his voice carrying a tone of unfamiliar gentleness. I have been hard on you, but I see now that you are strong and responsible. I am proud of you, my son. Kito's eyes widened, and he felt a lump rise in his throat. These were the words he had longed to hear for so long. Thank you, Baba, he managed to say, his voice trembling with emotion. Babu placed a hand on Kito's shoulder, a rare gesture of affection. You have shown great courage and love for your sister, he continued. I have been wrong to doubt you. Tears welled up in Kito's eyes, and he blinked them away, not wanting to cry in front of his father. Mwanaisha clapped her hands and hugged both Kito and Babu, her joy infectious. As they walked back to the village, Kito felt a profound sense of belonging. For the first time, he felt truly seen and valued by his father. The future, once clouded by doubt and hardship, now seemed bright and full of promise. Kito looked at his father and sister, and a smile spread across his face. He knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. And with that thought, Kito's heart soared with hope and happiness.